Hi guys, this is Triathlon Insider, the TV channel of trimac.de and the Triathlon magazine here in Germany. We usually do our live shows in German language, so yeah, but there's a reason why we do this one in English.
Yeah, we have to talk to English-speaking person, the Ironman boss himself.
Yeah, because you heard all the rumors and the facts that Ironman will split their men's and women's race. Only the women will race in Kona in 2023. The men will race in a different place. Maybe Andrew will tell us where it is. So yeah, I think let's start. Hello and welcome, Mr. Andrew Messick. Hi Andrew, nice to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, thanks very much, fellas. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we met you about 6 weeks ago, last time in Kona, after a week that we all thought was very successful for everybody. But something happened since then. How have your last 6 weeks been?
Well, it's been quite busy. I'd have to say. We had an expectation that the 2-day format that we had last month in Hawaii was going to be repeatable in 2023, and we had worked with the county and the community in Kailua-Kona, and that was our hope and our expectation, was that having 2 days of racing was going to work for the community. And unfortunately, in West Hawaii, perhaps not as much. And I think that part of the feedback that we've received over the last month or so is that the impact of the event, particularly the Thursday race, the impact on people who live and work in Kailua-Kona was quite a bit more than they were expecting. And to be quite frank, quite a bit more than the community is prepared to tolerate.
So we can expect that we won't have any 2 days of racing. Nonetheless, when in the year it will take place?
Well, certainly in the immediate term, 2 days of racing in Kona is not going to be possible. What's become clear is that the community in Kona is prepared to accommodate us 1 day a year, but the scenarios that we had anticipated, a Thursday, Saturday, or even a Saturday, simply aren't going to work with the community. Mm-hmm. And we're guests there. And despite the fact that, we live and have people that live in Hawaii, and we've been there for a long time, we are sensitive to the requirements of the community. And if 2 days of racing isn't possible, we have to acknowledge and accept that.
Already a few years ago, you told us that it would be your wish to have a 2-day format. And this year in St. George, you told us that it's crucial that there will be a 2-day event. And the question for us is, why is it so important to have this 2-day event for Ironman? Is it a financial thing?
No, I mean, having 2 different days of racing, one in Hawaii and one somewhere else, is it is economically not better because we have the expenses associated with 2 days of racing. I think there's several reasons why we think a 2-day World Championship is essential. The first is it's the only way to give women a opportunity to be able to race and have the spotlight all to themselves. Our experience with 70.3 Worlds, which we've had in a 2-day format since 2017 in Chattanooga, I think has convinced us that having a day for women and a day for men is good for the men and it's good for the women. And it gives our female professionals and age groupers an opportunity to have a clean race and to have the full focus of the media on them. And we feel strongly about that. The second reason why I think a 2-day race matters is that over the years, as Ironman has expanded, and we now have more than 45 qualifying races around the world, it is just simply too hard to qualify for many people in a one-day format. And to have that many qualifying races means that the number of slots in every race goes down and goes down a lot. And I recall when I was a serious age group athlete in 2005 and 2006, trying to qualify for the World Championships, there were 100 slots at virtually every qualifying race. Now the races are bigger, and many of our races have only 40 slots. And so over the last 15 or 20 years, it's gotten dramatically more difficult to be able to qualify for the World Championships. And in many age groups, and especially on the women's side, you really have to win your age group to be able to qualify for the World Championship. And we feel that that's unnecessarily limiting, and that there's an opportunity to be able to get more athletes that deserve an opportunity to race at the World Championships. And you can only do that when you expand the capacity of the race.
Isn't it a very huge price that we have to leave Kona for that?
Well, we're not leaving Kona. We're still racing in Kona. And I think having the women race in Kona in 2023 is going to be exceptional. And the men will have an opportunity to race in Kona in 2024. So Kona will continue to be a vital part of the future of the Ironman World Championship. But having a mixed gender race in Kona, we feel, is moving backwards. And our intention always is to look to move forwards.
How many countries are there that are able to send a large women's field to Kona? If I remember right, last year here in Hamburg, we had the Ironman Hamburg, and we had only about 200 and little more finishers in the women's field, and now they have 80 slots. Do you think they will? You are able to sell 80 slots in a field this small, or do you expect that more women will apply for the races where you give away a lot of slots?
Well, look, we're committed to increasing the number of women who are racing in Ironman.
That's a great idea.
And we believe
we like
that having more opportunities for women to participate. We have running races all around the world, and for our half marathons that we have, those are more than 50% female. And so there's clearly an appetite for women to participate in endurance events. And yet at the Ironman distance, fewer than a quarter of our athletes are women. And if you look in Europe, it's quite a bit lower than that. And so part of what we think is important for the future is to be able to create opportunities for women to race, to make them feel welcome, and to give them an opportunity to be able to compete at the highest level and be a part of something as special as the Ironman World Championship.
How different will Kona look like next year?
Well, the course is going to be the same. And I think the fundamental architecture of the schedule will be largely the same. It'll be women, obviously. And so that will change. I think there's going to be lots of fathers and brothers and husbands and sons who are going to be there to support the women who compete. And so I think that will feel very much the same. But part of what's going to be interesting for us is, how do we think about the programming of a world championship where the athletes are women? And frankly, does that change the way that we program the men's race, which we'll be announcing in January?
Another thing, when we saw in the comments on social media that there are big concerns that the legacy of the Ironman Hawaii will come to an end with this decision, and then there maybe the best age groupers will not be there in the other race, wherever it will be, because it's not Kona anymore. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that there's going to be some people who will be disappointed that they'll only be able to race in Kona every other year. But I think there's going to be other people for whom an opportunity to compete in the Ironman World Championship without, say, if you're a European, without having to fly for 20 hours and endure 12 hours of time zone difference, and who might find that if, for example, the men's race is closer to Central Europe, they might find that quite attractive. They don't need to take a week off of work. They don't need to spend all of that money. They don't need to travel that far. And we may just find that there's some people who really like that. Just like we might find some athletes who are interested in competing in a race that isn't strongly influenced by heat, humidity, and wind. And so part of, Kona is a very unique race. And the types of people who are successful there, not everyone can race well at Kona. And having a different venue from time to time for a world championship opens the door for other types of athletes potentially to be able to succeed at the highest level.
Yeah, but there are already a lot of athletes qualified for Kona or qualified for the next World Championship, and they expected to be able to race in Kona. Some deferred to 2023. Some already qualified in this year. And how did they react? And what do you offer to them?
Well, we'll give the athletes that have qualified for Kona in 23, we'll give them opportunities to defer to 2024 if that's what they want. We understand that there's people for whom Hawaii really is vitally important, and we'll find opportunities for them to be able to do that race. And we are through COVID, we've become very experienced at moving people from race to race, and so we'll look after the people that have already qualified.
That's good. That's good. But so that means 2024 is already filling up. So will it be much harder to qualify for a race that's already filled up to the half that the community can cope with? The community of Kona?
Well, look, there's limits on how many people you can race in Kona on any given day.
Yeah.
And we'll look at the number of people who have already qualified for the World Championship, who move into 2024, and then we'll make slot allocations accordingly for the remaining races. So, we'll see whether we have an issue, and if we do, we'll adjust accordingly.
Yeah. So the global triathlon community is quite sure that we will see each other in France next year. What is the process of bidding for future World Championships?
Well, we're not in a position right now to talk about where the men's race is going to be. But I can tell you that, at a minimum, it'll be in the same place for 2 years, and that'll give both men and women an opportunity to race. And we think it's going to be a place that people like, and that resonates with the triathlon community.
Jan Frodeno told us today that he's really frustrated because he don't know where he will race his last World Championship, he talked about that it's kind of embarrassing that in professional sports something happened. What can you tell Jan Frodeno?
Oh, well, what I can tell you is that Jan and I have already been in communication, and Jan's made his opinion known to me, and I've responded, and we look forward to having him attempt to win his 6th World Championship in the fall.
We hope for. We hope for it. How did other pros react? Is there a difference between the reactions between women and men?
It's hard for me to say definitively, but I can tell you that the female professional athletes that I've spoken to are really excited about an opportunity to have the spotlight in Hawaii be solely on them. And that's something that matters to us. We want to create a platform for women's sports. We want to create a platform for women in Ironman racing. And part of what makes us most excited about this is that in Hawaii in October of 2023, the full focus of the global triathlon community will be on professional and age group women in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's a question. If we talk about German TV, for example, will they go to both races? That's a thing we don't know, and you don't do that. But there are concerns that media outlets have to decide where to go if there are 2 World Championships and the 70.3 as well.
Well, I think in this day and age, I think that any sponsor, any broadcaster would need to be extraordinarily careful about not paying attention to women's sports. And that the moment we're in, if you look at the success of the Women's European Championships, the success of the Women's Rugby World Cup, which just concluded in New Zealand, the anticipation of the Women's World Cup coming up in 2023, and the success of the Tour de France Féminine, I think that broadcasters would need to be very, very careful about choosing to cover a men's race and not cover a women's race.
Yeah, yeah,
of course. But can you understand that many people are really sad that this legacy, that there was a World Championship always happening in one place, in this iconic place like Hawaii, that it comes to an end now like it was?
Well, look, I've said for years that one of the great things about Ironman is that we're old enough to have a history, but we're not so old that we're held hostage by our history. And so we've done a lot of things. You know, we created 2 days of racing for 70.3 Worlds. We moved away from the mass start at Kona. We've changed a lot of things. And we've always been prepared to make changes that we thought were for the greater good of the Ironman community. And that would allow more athletes to be able to take part in what we think is this remarkable sport. And we think that having 2 days of racing for the World Championships, a day for men and a day for women, will provide more opportunities for more athletes to be able to experience an Ironman World Championship. We are sad that it can't happen in Hawaii, but going back to 1 day of racing in Hawaii, for us right now, is not the answer. It creates the same problems of access that we've always had, and it creates the same challenges of the women's races being subsumed by the men's races. And we believe strongly that women deserve their opportunity to be the sole focus of attention. And we believe strongly that 2 days of racing will provide many more athletes an opportunity to compete at the World Championships. And for athletes who are committed to racing a World Championship in Kona, they're going to have their opportunity every other year.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're talking about history, we all saw the history of Ironman 70.3 World Championships. And I think it was a success to move places because every local organization committee wanted to do it better than the one before. will we see that in the future? That you told us about 2 years. You want to be in the place you will tell us soon. I hope so. Will it be like the same thing in Ironman 70.3, like traveling the world?
So I don't know. I mean, we'll be in the destination for a minimum of 2 years, and we'll see. I think that we're going to learn a lot in the next year or two, and we've never been afraid to adjust course based on what happens. And to our Ironman community, I think it's important that everyone know we are listening. We take the concerns of the community very seriously. And once we've had a chance to experience what this 2-day split world championship is going to be like, we will make whatever adjustments we think are appropriate for the best interest of Ironman and our athletes and our partners and everybody who is a part of our global ohana.
Yeah.
You talked about learning. Was it maybe a little bit too much pressure for the community that you told us in summer that the 2023 event will be a 2-day event before you had the chance to learn from this year?
Well, we didn't have a choice given when qualifying starts. And so because qualifying for next year's race starts before this year's race happens, and always has, it puts us in a position where we needed to make a decision about whether, how we were going to qualify our athletes. And we were hopeful and confident, frankly, that 2 days of racing was going to work for the community, but we were wrong.
Yeah. Talking about learnings, we had a lot of issues in both the men's and the women's race with penalties and everything else. Can we expect to have a totally different race course for the men to prevent things that happened in Kona?
Well, what do you mean the things that happened in Kona? We penalize people who are drafting or blocking like we always do.
Yeah, but it was a little more than in the years before, and a lot of athletes complained that they even didn't know the reason that they got the penalty. In soccer, soccer is a sport that people don't like in Germany right now. Maybe it's worse tomorrow, but they have video-assisted referees and everything else. For a lot of people, it was not clear what they got the penalty for. And people are asking for a tough bike course to prevent drafting in the very first step.
Well, look, I think that one of the things that having a 2 days of racing highlighted was typically you've got a certain number of officials and they are spread in a 1-day scenario. They're spread between the first man and the last professional woman. And that in general can be quite a substantial distance. In a single day of racing, you have the same number of officials spread between the first man and the first woman, and then the first man and the last man, and then on the other day, the first woman and the last woman. And so you've got the same number of officials patrolling a much smaller area. And consequently, behavior that perhaps wouldn't have been caught was. And so in a single gender, single day scenario, I think the athletes are going to have to be a lot more careful. And they're going to have to be more diligent and more disciplined to make sure that they are maintaining the appropriate distances. And that's going to be an adjustment that athletes need to make. But I've reviewed the the penalties, and I've talked to officials, and I think we are all convinced that the races were fairly adjudicated over both the men's and the women's races. And so we feel that the races were fair and that the best people won.
Yeah, so we know your time is tight right now. One last question. What is your schedule to announce where the next year's men's race will take place and how the slot allocation will work?
Our expectation is that'll happen in mid-January.
Okay, we are looking forward to it. Yeah, so people started guessing. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about the same place, but we understand that you can't tell us now.
That is correct. I can't tell you right now.
So what's the reason? Is the contract the ink on the contract is not there, or what's the reason for it?
When all of the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, we'll make the announcement along with the slot allocations and how we handle professional male athletes and all of that. But we felt it would be not appropriate to release only part of the story of where the men's race will be.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll see you there. Thank you very much for your time, Andrew Messick. And yeah, have a great December. I think it's not the time for Christmas mood, but yeah, have a great rest of the year and a nice Christmas, and see you next year.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.